This is Erica McKenzie. This is the lady that went to hell. She got 2 life reviews. One, I'm going to cut it off, and the other one, I'm just going to let her run because this interview, it's an hour long.
I see and feel all these hands, human fingers, pulling me. They're trying to pull at me because I'm hovering right above them. And they want the light, and they're trying to pull at me. And each finger I remember feeling had so much power on it that it was literally draining my life force out. And I knew that if I stayed there any longer, I would be completely taken down into them, and I didn't feel like I would be able to get out.
All credit goes to Love Cover Life Podcast. This is Melissa's channel. Thank you, and please subscribe to her channel.
There was souls, and they were lifting off unscathed from the flames.
This is a Pinguinati production.
Three, two, one.
This nurse took diet pills for 12 years.
For 12 years. And the reason why I started doing that was because I felt like a tremendous amount of pressure at that time from my peers to fit in, if you will. And it seemed like no matter what I did, what I tried to do, nothing was good enough. And I didn't know it then, but knowing it today, it's called like people pleasing is what I was doing, where I was doing everything myself, changing myself, trying everything within myself to try to make others happy. And so they would find me acceptable and, welcome me into their groups. And so it started this lifelong pattern of very unhealthy situations that I got myself into in, hopes of trying to belong. And so the bulimia for 12 years led into taking diet pills. I didn't eat and I didn't sleep. If you do that for a few days, think about how you feel. But if you start doing that for years on a regular basis, it really starts messing with you physiologically, with your neurons in your brain, transmitters that tell your lungs, for example, to open and close, to breathe, which sounds so simple and natural to us. But when you have something in your body that's impairing that, which that's what it was doing, over time, if you do it long enough and it becomes chronic, things start to shut down and be affected. And that's exactly what started happening a few months before I died. And fast forward to the day that I died, I was found by a couple of strangers, and they knew that I had impending doom on my face, meaning I didn't have much time. They could tell. And one of them had called the paramedics, and they were trying to just keep me conscious until they got there, but it was too late. And at that point, I left my body ethically, and I knew that the angel wanted me to go. And so I let go. And as soon as I let go, I was enveloped in this incredible tunnel. It had light that was so brilliant, but the colors are indescribable because, again, not just the colors of the rainbow. It's like on steroids. That's how I can explain it. And we start going at supersonic speed, traveling up. And I could see in the far distance the clearing, and it looked like outer space, the black with the stars. And I found myself getting closer, and I don't know how long. People ask me all the time, how long were you in the tunnel? How long were you in heaven, all this? And all I can tell you from the start is what I've learned is this. Humans, the way we perceive time here on earth is completely different than when I left my human body. And everything that I experienced out of my human body, time as we know it, did not exist. It's the best way I can explain it. And so eventually we get to this clearing at the end of the tunnel. And when I'm there, I'm standing there and I feel the presence sending me more love and then leave. And so I'm looking out in front of me, and it was the most miraculous, if any kind of National Geographic, whatever documentary you can watch on the space and how it looks. I mean, it just imagine being there and it magnified, 1,000 times. It was absolutely incredible. And I felt instant love on top of this. And I didn't feel scared, even though it seemed so vast. It just seemed like home. And as soon as I had this feeling like, wow, I feel like I'm home, I feel this presence in front of me, and it was God. So I'm looking in front of me and I'm looking at the stars, and all of a sudden the stars start to line up like a huge old curtain in an old movie theater. And so they line up and I'm seeing them start to part, and I hear this noise in my left ear. It sounded like a whirring vintage projector of when like a film is going to start, that whirring sound. And then I see the stars parting, and I see on the screen the life review of Erica. I was also taught that we're all sinners, and, we're probably going to go to hell. If we're lucky, Jesus died for our sins, and then we can be forgiven. I have sinned so much that there is just no way. In the back of my mind, I was like, when I die, I'm going to hell. I know it. I deserve it, even though, yes, Jesus died for my sins. So I think I always had this back and forth internal struggle, and I was terrified of death because of it. I really was, because I knew I'd messed up so much. And I really felt like I was such a disappointment to God, that how could God, love me enough to let me into heaven, And so having these conflicting feelings and really feeling like it's the worst panic attack ever, we proceed to keep going with the events. And then finally, yes, we get to that day that I died at 31 years old. And we get there and I'm waiting. I'm waiting for God to judge me. Because isn't that what we're taught? In organized religion, that's what I was taught. So, but God did not judge me. God loved me, held me again, and filled me with so much love, unconditional love, most exhilarating, amazing feeling. Like I can't even describe it to you guys. And so I never got judged. And I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, how is this possible? Just having this conflicting emotions because of what I was taught as a human. And, I thought, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing. God, you are so amazing. And I'm just so blessed. And, thank you. And because I don't deserve you in your love. And thank you for filling me with your love. And I'm thinking, okay, now I get to go into heaven. We're done. I had this life review. Okay. That's not what happened. So anyway, right in front of me appeared eyeglasses. Okay, so these eyeglasses were God's glasses, and the glasses near and putting them onto my face. And then God said, now look. And as soon as he said that, I watched in front of me, the stars lined up again like that curtain. And I heard that whirring vintage projector in my left ear. The stars parted, curtain open. There I am again, the same picture of me. My mom's holding me in the hospital the day I was born. And I'm thinking, holy, you know what? I am such a sinner that I need God's glasses on.
The first review that she had, I had to cut it off. So this is the second review, looking through God's eyes. And after the review, and she's going to go to hell, there's going to be fire and negative people.
To show me, and here we go again, what I couldn't see before. It was exactly right, in meaning everything I saw, this life review from the day that I was born until that day at 31 years old that I died, was completely different than what I saw in the first life review. So to give you an example, The things that I saw in this life review, I remember one of the first memories was when I was 5 years old and we were in Brownies and we were at the rest home singing Christmas carols to the old folks. And they couldn't find me, my troop leader at one point. And when they found me, I was in one of the rooms, the residents' rooms, and I was sitting on this elderly woman's lap, brushing her hair, singing Jesus Loved Me. I'm watching this moment unfold. And, you know, at the time I did it, it was just out of my heart, but I didn't see the reciprocation at the time. So what I got to see this time in the review was how that really affected her. All that love. She didn't have family. She didn't have much friends. She had pretty much outlived all of them. And, you know, she was just really longing for this love connection. And what happened that day with me doing that with her is it was able to feel that again and open her heart to God. And, you know, it was pretty profound. And we went on and he showed me experience after experience in my life of things like that. And the common theme with all of these things that I was shown was love was present. So there was things like giving money to a homeless person, rescuing animals, helping animals, listening to a person who, you know, people thought was not a good person, not worth living, trash person, and really being a good listener and support and love. There was just countless things. I didn't even remember most of these things because all of these things were things that weren't done when we necessarily, like we do things a lot of times because people watch, I guess. And so they see that accolade, that garner, that accomplishment. But all of these things this time, the only one that was watching when it was happening was God. But I felt how important that was. That's all that mattered, is what God sees, what God thinks. Is what God sees, what God thinks. And love was in every single thing. And that was the only thing that is important. Because if you do not have love, you have nothing. Not have love, you have nothing. Not have love, you have nothing. So then I started having a panic attack again, thinking, okay, you know, I'm so bad that he had to give me the second life review to see what really matters. I couldn't even prepare myself or wrap my head around how terrified I was. I deserved this judgment because I was such a sinner. And my heart was just pounding. I felt like it was hard to breathe. I can't even explain it, but I was terrified. And we get to that day that I died finally. And God hugged me and filled me with more love than he did the first life review. And so I'm just like, wow, I get it. And I came to understand how important it is when we're on the planet to be mindful of not judging others. Because if God didn't judge me, this lowly sinner, and God is the creator of all, then who are we to think that we are qualified or even begin to be qualified to judge others? That's a huge lesson that I took from that. And again, God completely took the time to make sure that I understood the difference between the first life review, Erica. In the first life review, those are the things that are important to mankind. Second life review, I gave you my glasses so you could see what's important to me, and that is love. And you see, if it's real love, love is selfless. It's not selfish. You give love, right? You share love, you receive love. It's a huge gift, and it's more than a gift, it's a life force, and it's really the thing that drives everything that's happening. And so I thought, okay, this is incredible. I'm not going to get struck with a lightning bolt and go to hell. And, you know, I'm like, I had so much relief and I was so excited at the same time. And I just thought, okay, ready to go into heaven. You know, I learned this, I'm never going to forget. And that's not what happened. God told me to look to my right, And I knew that another lesson was going to be beginning at this point. And at this time, I like to call it the rippling effect. And I remember him taking his palm like this, and then all of a sudden, a huge rock the size of a small car appeared in the palm of his hand. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, that's huge. What's happening? And as I'm having these thoughts, God said, you are the rock. Okay. Then he says, you are the light. And when he says you are the light, all of a sudden on this rock, it was like somebody turned a switch on, and this blinding light, I could barely look upon it with so much force. And it was coming out of every angle of the rock. It was so powerful. So I'm thinking, okay, I am the rock. I am the light. And he's like, the light is of me, and I am with you. And as soon as he said that, I watched him turn his palm, and he let loose this huge rock. And God and I stood together, and we watched it fall for what seemed like such a long time. And then when the rock was almost directly right out in front of my eyesight, there's a huge body, larger than the biggest ocean, no borders, appeared right in front of us. And I watched how this rock fell, and it plunged into that ocean with so much force, and it produced one single ripple.
This is called the ripple effect.
And we stood together, and I watched that ripple as it grew and it grew and it grew, and it grew so big that I couldn't even see the border of that ripple anymore. And God said, like the ripple affects the water, so too does mankind's words, thoughts, and actions affect all of mankind. And I had this almost like bring to your knees moment. It was so powerful when he said that. It went completely through me, because I never realized that. I thought, yeah, there's some people on the earth that they're lucky, if they're lucky enough, they have a platform that, yeah, maybe their words, thoughts, and actions could really affect so many. But how can one little lowly person like myself, make that much of an impact? But I came to understand at that time how much he loves each and every one of his kids equally. He doesn't see us like a lot of humans view each other. And so because of that, that is how each one of us can make a huge impact that can affect everyone and everything here on the planet. It's designed to be that way. But here is the important part. God told me, like that ripple and how it affects everything, you don't have a choice. You will come into this world. You will be a ripple, and you will affect everything. But your choice is, will you choose to have that light on or off when you do it? The light, remember, was of God, and God is love. That is that life force of the light. And because God gave us free will, hand in hand with the gift of life, he gives us free will. We have the free will to have the light shine or not. It was completely, it was so powerful. I mean, I'm just sitting here going, there's a part of me that's like, okay, I have to remember this, like, almost like you want to write it down because you want to forget anything in case you go back. It could help so many people to know these things. I'm thinking it could change everything. And then the other part of me was like, that took over is, well, yeah, that's awesome. But I'm not going back. I'm going into heaven because this is my home, and I never want to be parted from God and this feeling of love that I have connection with him again. And so God said to me, when you were born, I gave you the gift of patience, and I gave you the gift of beauty. So here's me. I don't know who does this, but that's when I stopped God with my thought back to him was, oh, no, trying to shut him down. That's not true, God. You never gave me the gift of beauty, because look at my life. And just remembering going back, to when I was in 7th grade and how everything just started to change. And a lot of it was based on, my appearance, trying to fit in so that people would like me. But really, a lot of people were mean to me because of my appearance. It was so weird to me. I didn't get it. But anyway, so I I had grown over the years to not see that at all as a gift. It was more like a curse because I wasn't getting what I felt I needed from this beauty thing or whatever. It was like backfiring, if you will. And God stopped me in that moment of that negative thinking and said again, Erica, when you were born, I gave you the gift of patience and I gave you the gift of beauty. And in that moment, I took a breath like I had never taken a breath before, and it opened up my heart. And he said, the gift of beauty comes from within your heart. So it starts from within and it's without on the exterior. That is the beauty. And I had stifled that for so many years. I didn't even know, that I had it, but I finally understood what it really meant for the first time. So that was like a huge awakening, considering what, killed me, the things that I did because of my parents. And then God went on to say to me, in life, when each and every one of you are born, I give you all gifts, all of you. Do you know how to receive those gifts? And I'm thinking, hey, is it like a code? Because I don't know it. No, I don't know how. And God said, well, you have to be quiet and listen after you ask. So I just remember when he said, be quiet and listen, it rang through every fiber of my being. I knew it was so imperative. More important than asking was to then be quiet and listen and learn how to do that effectively so that we can receive our gifts. And God said, I have more gifts for each and every one of you throughout your life. And I'm thinking, wow, that's incredible. Like, we've all got these specific gifts and, we get some when we're born, and then throughout our life, we get more. And God went on to have a very long, extensive lesson with me about the gifts because of everything that I did until the day that I died. It was completely backwards, messed up way of thinking about life and your uniqueness and how your uniqueness is actually your value and your value is your contribution here on your earthly journey. So it's so important, like our fingerprint, our blueprints are so unique, specifically to unlock our gifts, to help us on our mission. So here I was giving an example, going through life, doing everything I could to change myself, which then I wasn't accessing to the magnitude that God had designed me to receive these gifts and use them on my journey. And so things started making so much more sense. And for time purposes, I won't go into all of it, but just know that that's the takeaway from this is that it wasn't just about me. It was about learning that if you're here and you're on this planet breathing, you are important. And your uniqueness is definitely your value. It is going to help you unlock your potential and your gifts and use them with that love connection for God. And it's not just about you then. It's also about you learning how to embrace and empower other people on the planet, helping them have a space to see and grow their gifts if they don't. Or if they do see it, then working together with your gifts to go on and do great things. Because can you imagine that rock and the impact that it made, that ripple? And if one person has their light on and they make that ripple, now can you imagine 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on of us choosing to have our lights on together? It just gives me goosebumps every time to understand the magnitude of the power in that, the power to change things for the better in that. And so, yeah, that was huge. There was so much that I learned through that. And I thought, when I was done, oh my gosh, this is absolutely incredible. And then I thought how lucky I was and blessed that God was taking this. I thought he's got to be busy taking this time because learning was always hard for me. I had dyslexia and some learning challenges when I was in the human form. And so it was pretty amazing how God was taking the time through each of these lessons to make sure that I understood what his point was with me and that I grasped it so that it became a part of my DNA, my being, so that I would always keep it with me. It was important. And so anyway, we get done with that lesson and I'm thinking, okay, I mean, I don't know if I can learn anything else. Like this is incredible, and it's so helpful. If I did have to go back to the planet again, I said to myself, my gosh, how many people would this help, including myself? I would do it right this time. I have the strength and the energy and the power through God's love connection to be able to do these things and to help people see it too. And then I just remember this feeling of, okay, actually, I want to go into heaven. And I sense that it's like this way to the right. And at that moment, this is the first time through all my lessons that God told me to look to my left. So I remember having to look to my left and I'm looking down and out. And at this point, what I see was planet Earth. And even though planet Earth seemed very far away, it was close enough that I could really get a good sense of, the ocean and the continents, the water, the terrain, if you will, of the earth. And just for the first time, being able to take that in was so incredibly profound. And I just remember thinking, my God, we are so lucky as humans to have that planet, just really admiring how perfect it really was. That God had made for us. And having these feelings transpired into, oh, you know what? And my family's down there. And I had 2 little kids at the time, 3 and 6 years old. And I just remember thinking about them and thinking, now, here's the thing. I gave up my career when I had kids because to me, I'd always wanted to be a mom. And if, financially it allowed us to, I really wanted to stay home with them. That was just something I'd always, wanted to do. And so I was lucky enough to be in that position. And I was loving it. I absolutely loved being a mom. And so you think, God, if you really were that kind of person, then what kind of person doesn't want to go back to their kids? What kind of a mom is that, right? And so, but that goes to show you that when you know that you are finally home, you don't think like that. Because I could see that clearly there was a bridge between where I was in heaven and earth, where my kids, my family, was, everybody they cared about. And I saw for the first time, my God, it's true. We're not separated. We're always together. Because once we are able to see that these bodies are a vehicle and there's so much more to each and every one of us, that connection is so strong that we can be together. And so I just had so much peace in knowing that, yes, they're down there physically, but we really aren't separated. And I wanted to stay there. I wanted to stay there because I knew I was home and eventually one day they would come home too. And I'm, feeling good about everything and feeling like this must be my goodbyes before I go into heaven.
This is when she starts going to hell.
And then all of a sudden I'm looking at the planet and I start getting concerned because I'm seeing something that looks like lights flickering all over the planet. And I just remember, okay, zone in to what you're seeing. So I remember trying harder and fixated more on these little flickering things. And as I'm looking more intently, I see that it's actually flames. And the flames are all over the planet. And as soon as I have that realization that, oh my gosh, these are flames all over the planet, it becomes engulfed and the flames are huge. And there's not one area that's, without flames at this time. So then I start having another panic attack. I'm just completely panicking. I'm terrified out of my mind. And God's like, here's your glasses. And I'm like, I'm not putting those on. It was God's glasses again. I wanted to resist it so bad because I was absolutely terrified knowing that my family was down there and people that were important to me. And I knew when I had the glasses on before that I was able to see what I couldn't see before, right? And so I was terrified. I didn't want to see it because what could be good out of flames, I grabbed the glasses and I pulled them and I drew them onto my face. And I remember having to look. And this time, what I could see is in between all of the flames, there was souls and they were lifting off unscathed from the flames. And I watched how all these souls were lifting off the earth and they were unscathed and they were coming closer and they were flying past the left of my face and going in behind me which I wasn't allowed at this point to turn around and see it yet, but I knew that it was heaven. So they were unscathed and they were happy, and they were all going in just by the droves, thousands of them. And I just had this sense of overwhelming relief. I was like, oh my gosh, God, thank you so much. This is great. They're all coming in and we're watching them together. And I'm thinking, okay, we're fine. Everybody's fine. They've escaped the flames. And this was the first and only time in this experience that I felt this tremendous, overwhelming sadness from God. And the best way I can describe it as a mother is I cannot imagine. I feel for people who have lost their children. To me, that would be the worst thing to do to me while I'm in human form. And this feeling of sadness from God, take that times millions. And so it was the feeling that he had lost that many children. And I'm like, oh, no, God, look, I have your glasses on. I can see they're all okay. Everybody's coming up. They're in heaven. Everything is fine. Don't worry, as if I know. Right? But that's how I was. I was like consoling God. And God stopped me and said, Erica, hand in hand with the gift of life, I give free will. And I didn't really know what that ever meant until I had this near-death experience. I had learned about it in church and all that, but not like this. And what I understood was,
she's going to explain free will.
God loves not just a fraction of his children, but each and every one of his children that he's created so much that he gave the selfless gift, love. Love is the choice, free will, that we have to choose if we want to love him back. So he doesn't force anybody to love him. You're going to love me, or you're going to get, zapped by a lightning bolt. It's not like that. We can choose at any time to have that love connection that God has for us.
This is not in your Bibles.
And so it was amazing that, God's letting us have this gift of controlling, do we want to have this, connection or not? It was just like the most selfless thing. And he was so, instead of celebrating for, yes, my children are coming in, right? He still wasn't going to give up. And his heart hurt, and he cried for those that chose not to have that love connection. Because you see, when I'm looking again now, past all the souls that are coming in, and I'm looking at the plan, I'm thinking, where are these souls that, he's crying about? And I'm looking, and I can see there are souls that are not lifting off. They're not lifting off the planet. They're staying on the planet. They're left behind. And I came to understand that love connection, that life force, like in the rippling effect lesson, right? Those souls that were coming in had chose to have that love connection. Their light was on, and it was the force needed to perpetuate them, lift them off the planet, and to come in to be with their family again, to be home. But those that were left behind chose to have that love connection off. So, it's like, I guess like a rocket, without that fuel they need, the rocket is not going to launch off. So think of the love connection maybe as a fuel in that way, if you will. And so, yeah, it was completely, oh my God. I mean, just absolutely profound. And, at this point, then I think, okay, I must be done, because I don't think I can handle learning, anything else. I'm just like completely filled up with knowledge. And, I remember turning around so that I could go and join everybody that's just gone into heaven. I didn't ever find anything in all the teachings, in the Bible. We're starting to run fast.
She wanted to run to heaven, but God stopped her.
And just being frozen in time, like not being able to move all of a sudden. And God said, oh, no, child, you're not going in there. Your mission's just begun. You've worked for me now. Remember? He said, I want to give you, before you go back, 2 more things. He said, I told you that I gave you, patience and beauty when you were born. And now I want to give you knowledge and wisdom. And when I send you back, I want you to be quiet and listen to the people that I put into your life. And then when you speak, you will take patience, beauty, knowledge, and wisdom, and you will change millions of people's lives. And before I could argue, like, please don't send me back. I know I'm home. I'll do anything. Before I could even get that out of my mouth, I feel like I'm stuffed through now another tunnel.
And she was thinking she was going back to Earth. Boy, was she wrong. This is when she starts going to hell.
And I'm going back to Earth because God just told me my mission isn't done and I work for him. So this time, going back down was a completely different experience in every aspect than the one going up. This was horrible. This experience was completely dark. There was absolutely no light present in this tunnel. And it was extremely confining, meaning I knew I was standing up and I knew that my arms were like stuck to the sides of my body. There was no room to expand. Like I had felt, limitless and so expanded. Going up wasn't like that at all. Going down, I felt completely alone. And not only could I not see anything because there wasn't any light, but I started to realize, oh my gosh, like I don't hear anything. I can't smell anything. So again, I'm starting to try to draw from my human senses and there's like nothing. And then pretty soon it feels like I'm traveling for such a long time. I start to get really, really slow in the tunnel. And remember going up, it was like, supersonic speed. And it was completely the opposite. Going back down was like so painstakingly long. It was like almost like if you had a defected tunnel. It was like so slow. I didn't know if I was going to get down there. And at one point, I remember stopping in the tunnel. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. God just gave me this job and I'm going to listen after everything I've learned. I'm going to do my best, but I need to get down there and get it done because I want to go home. I don't even want to be on the planet. I am trying to think how can I get myself going again? And this was the first and only time going back down that I didn't feel God's presence. I didn't feel that love connection. And it was terrifying. And I just remember panicking and feeling like, okay, I can't see, I can't move. And then all of a sudden, before I had another thought, I hear something in my left ear again. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, okay, well, I don't know what it is. I can't make it out, but it's the only thing that I've got to go on is my hearing right now. So I'm gonna really try to listen so I can get myself help to get down. And so the more I started listening intently to it, it first started sounding like
this is the negative place where all the negative people are.
More, I feel all of a sudden that first with my ear, I'm getting pulled out of this tunnel by this noise. It's completely directing me and pulling me out. As soon as I'm out of the tunnel, I'm placed on my back and my hands are still confined to my side. And I begin to travel that way. And I don't know where I'm going because it's completely black. I don't see stars or anything. It's completely black. But I just know, okay, it's the only thing I have to go off of. So I'm going to do my best to try to pay attention so I have a sense of where am I and how do I get back down. And so eventually I come to a stop and I'm just like hovering in blackness. And all of a sudden I hear this buzzing noise go from that to what sounds like a bunch of garbled, muffled voices. Like if hundreds of people were in a ballroom and, the acoustics are so bad because everybody's trying to have a conversation at once that you can't even understand yourself, and the people trying to talk to you directly because it's just so loud and muffled. That's what it sounded like. I couldn't understand anything. But I had this knowing all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think those are people's voices. I can't understand them, but I think that's what it is. As soon as I thought that, I could understand each and every conversation that was happening at once without love. They were all negatives, as people talking about how much anger and hatred they had for others, people plotting to do horrible things. If you can imagine any kind of conversation where love isn't present, your mind can just go wild. And it was just absolutely terrifying. And as soon as I had that realization that, oh my God, like I'm above all of these people hovering and this is horrifying. I don't want to be here, crying out to God to help me. As I cry out, help me, my light from within came on. And just like when he had the rock and he showed me the demonstration and the light was everywhere emanating, that's exactly what my body was. It was giving off this light that, like a lighthouse, you couldn't miss it. In the dark, it's the one light. So as my light's going on and I know it's coming from me, I see and feel all these hands, human fingers, pulling me. They're trying to pull at me because I'm hovering right above them. And they want the light and they're trying to pull at me. And each finger I remember feeling had so much power on it that it was literally draining my life force out.
This is what happens because you're on the Orion Earth. These people are very negative. This is why I make videos. This place is very negative for us.
And I knew that if I stayed there any longer, I would be completely taken down into them. And I didn't feel like I would be able to get out. I mean, my life force was just quickly, like a battery, just draining down into them. And I didn't feel like I would be able to get out. I mean, my life force was just quickly, like a battery, just draining.
And be aware, a lot of people here don't have souls.
And I just remember crying out to God, please help me, God. I love you. I work for you now. Please don't forget me. I need you. You know, I can't do this without you. And establishing that love connection, which is what I did, that desire to have that love connection from God. In that very moment, all of those hands started reluctantly lifting off of me. And eventually, when the last finger was off of me, my body starts going up high enough so that no one can touch me. And I start going back towards that tunnel, floating still on my back towards the tunnel. And I remember as I'm going back towards the tunnel and I'm finally getting in there, having conversation again with God because I've got that connection established again. And I just remember thinking to God, I could feel while I was there, even though, you know, the love wasn't present, I couldn't help but feeling that not all of those people were bad. And I could feel that, well, aren't they your children too? Can't you help them? Why won't you help them? I wasn't perfect. You know, I sinned. I should be in there. Whatever that is, I mean, I'm sure I should be there, you know? And God said to me again, he reminded me of with the gift of life, hand in hand, he gives free will. And so it was free will that they were choosing not to have that love connection. But here's what I learned. You know how I went in there, and I went in there at that time from being in the dark tunnel to all of a sudden not feeling God, right? That connection. But remember when I cried out, as soon as I cried out and I declared my love and, you know, desire for God, my creator, how that love connection came on, the light came on and was established again. So God explained to me, our love connection, our desire for him, it doesn't expire. It's not like, oh, you know, you got until you're 43, Mr. Jones, to decide if you're going to make that love connection or not. No. God extends that as a gift with free will for us to desire that connection at any point. And it doesn't expire once we leave our human, you know, shell as a spiritual being. And so those people were in there, not because God put them there. They put themselves there when they chose to not have that love connection with God. We're in there, not because God put them there. They put themselves there when they chose to not have that love connection with God. But they could get out at any time. All they had to do was establish again, like I did, cry out for the desire to have that love connection with God. But they could get out at any time. All they had to do was establish again, like I did, cry out for the desire to have that love connection with God. And they could get out just like I did at any time. So to me, that was one of the most profound things, being terrified of dying until this happened, was coming to the understanding, because I wasn't taught that in organized religion. So that was really hard for me to, you know, come back and for a long time process and telling people and everything, because, you know, I'm not saying, oh, this is the only way it is or whatever. I'm just telling you what I experienced. And what I experienced was not what I was taught, not what I was taught. So that was incredible, because for me, it was like this huge weight had been lifted off, knowing that, you know, we aren't judged. God doesn't put those people there. They put themselves there and they could get out at any time. And I had so much peace because I really, even though I didn't know those people, there was a strange connection of feeling like I did, and I felt for them. My heart felt sorrow and pity and sadness for them, and I didn't want to give up on them. And I came to understand, well, God's not giving up on them. God never will. And remember, time doesn't exist like we know it there. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So anyway, I finally get back to the tunnel. I'm stood up in the tunnel again, and I finally get back down to earth. It seems like forever, and I'm exhausted. And I get to the point where I'm hovering on the ceiling, looking down at the emergency room, the gurney, and it's my body, my shell, and my husband's crying over my body. And, the nurses and stuff are doing what they need to do to make sure that I'm okay. And at that point, I knew that I was going to have to go back into my body, because in order to do this work for God and complete this mission, I had to be in that vehicle, because it's the only way that I could be on earth. The vehicle is my body. And I just remember having a huge panic moment again of, I can't do it. And you will go back into that body. You have everything that you need. God loved you. And the sooner you do this, it's going to be okay. God's with you. But it has to be done. You don't have a choice. And so I just kind of had a little bit of relief. And then I just remember that magnet sucked me back up to the ceiling and then put me over. And then I remember looking down at my body again and going right in.